Hello everybody. Today I wanted to talk about the GTA 5 on PC and graphics configuration, show you what I've done as I've played the game over time to configure my graphics setting for the highest I can possibly do for my hardware, um, while getting the most performance and quality possible. And I've done that a few ways. There's a few things that you really need to do in order to accomplish this, because GTA 5 is very graphics intensive. It's resource intense on your GPU and your CPU. So you need to be monitoring those things. And first thing I'm going to show you, the first utility is called Specky. This is how I monitor my CPU. What I use this program for is made by Piriform. It's free. It gives you a summary of all your hardware, but I use it particularly for the CPU for this application because I want to look at the CPU fan speed, the temperature, and then I also look at my core clock because I overclock my i7 from 3.4 gigs to 4 gigs. And so I just want to make sure that it's running adequately and the temperatures are where they should be. So I use Specky to monitor the CPU. Now I have multiple monitors. That's the ideal setup. That way you can have these utilities running on the side monitor and you can just look over and see them, which is what I do. If you only have one monitor and you can't do that, what I recommend is you still have these open and running, and then when you run into any issues while you're playing, graphic issues, then just tab out and take a look at these utilities and make sure that they're running as they should be. So temperature for CPU needs to be about 50 to 60 is a good range. Mine runs on average about 50, sometimes 55, and you can see my RPM is relatively high. Like right now it's at 2000 RPM with sitting at almost 50 degrees Celsius. I changed this in my BIOS for my motherboard because by default it runs a little lower, which allows it to run hotter, which I don't prefer for Grand Theft Auto. Yes, you may burn out some fans a little sooner, but these are $20 fans. If they last me a year or 2 years, then they've done their job. So I turned up my fan speed for my CPU based on a threshold, temperature threshold, which is why mine's running at 2000 RPM at this temperature. And you see this RPM keeps it at that temperature as everything's running right now, which is ideal. So that's for the CPU. For the GPU, I actually use two different utilities. One for sensors. I use GPU-Z for monitoring the sensors, temperature, the fan speed, and then the memory used. Just like to see those numbers. And then I use MSI Afterburner to actually change the fan speed of my GPU. And so you do that by going into the setting. Oops, sorry. Setting fan. Well, see now, as I turned it off, so what I done is I turned it back to auto. So this is the default fan configuration for my GTX 970. The fan doesn't come on at 40 degrees Celsius. See, that's a problem for me while I'm playing Grand Theft Auto. So I have it enabled for my own ARC. And for me, the key threshold and temperature is 50 degrees. Anything under that, I have relatively low fan speed. But once it hits 50, is when the fan really kicks in, because you need to keep the temperature down. 50 to 60 is your range. 50 is more ideal. Like, I'd rather run at 50 at a 50% fan speed than run at 60 at a 40% span speed, if that makes sense. Like the 50/50 is better because it's colder. Even if it's running at a higher RPM, like I said before, I don't care so much as long as it's not too high of an RPM, which is why you're monitoring the percentage over here. So MSI Afterburner will allow you to adjust your fan speed arc, which allows you to keep your GPU cooler than the stock configuration will do for you. So I run both of those on the side. So those three utilities allow me to run GTA smoothly and keep my system cool while pushing the graphics configuration. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the game now. I've been kicked for being idle. So we'll rejoin a room. The first thing I'm going to show you is how to enable your FPS counter. So by default it's not enabled, so you don't know how many FPS you're actually running while you're playing the game, unless you had another like third-party utility running telling you. But Steam actually has a setting for this. I didn't know this at first. So you hit your Alt-Tab, go to Settings. You have to do this while you're in the game. Go to Settings, In-game FPS counter. Normally it's on off. I have mine top left, and then OK. And so now I see my FPS in the top left. You can't see it for the recording. It doesn't capture that overlay, or that layer, I guess, for some reason I don't know right this second. I'm pretty new to recording, so bear with me if there's any simple mistakes I'm making. But right now I'm running at 40 FPS, which, because I'm recording, I'm losing about 10 frames. I tested that, pretty much confirmed that's about the hit that I'm taking for recording, because I have my recording setting at 1080p and that's through the OBS software. So right now I'd probably be getting about 52 to 53, and right now I'm getting 42 frames. But most importantly here is, I am online, pretty big lobby, and I'm playing Wi-Fi with a wireless internet connection. So I don't even have the most ideal network connection, which might even get me another frame or two, but I don't know. I just don't have that capability currently. But really what you're seeing here is, there's no stuttering, there's no lag, there's no frame rate loss or frame drops. Basically it's running exactly as I would expect it to, basically just like I was offline. Like right now I'm running at 40 to 45 frames, which means if I wasn't recording I'd be getting 55 to 60. It'd be pretty much maxing out my frame rate, because I run on a 60 Hertz monitor, so 60 frames per second is my target. So I run with VSync on and triple buffering, because there's no point in trying to get any more than 60 frames, because my screen can't refresh it fast enough to make a difference for me to notice it. So if you have a 60 Hertz monitor, then 60 frames is your target, and your monitor can't display any more frames than that. Can't refresh the hertz faster than 60 frames per second. So that's your target. That's my target, and that gives me smooth gameplay. Right now the gameplay is very smooth. Like I said, this is a big lobby, and there's no stuttering, there's no micro stuttering, and that's very noticeable, and it's also it's gameplay killing on Grand Theft Auto, because the stuttering just ruins the immersion. It ruins the entire feel of the game. And these settings let me just make sure I'm on passive so I don't get destroyed while I'm talking here. And here's my graphic settings. As you can see, I have it on very high, essentially 3 gigs out of 4 used, and I actually use about 3.4 gigs overall, because my global NVIDIA settings are even more intense. more intense on my GPU than the game. It's the settings in the game. There's extra settings in my global NVIDIA utility that even push more of a load on my graphics card. So I run about 3.4 gigs of video memory while playing the game, and that doesn't really matter. But basically, everything is pretty much on. Like I said, I run VSync on because I have a 60 Hz monitor. So having VSync on, what that does for having a 60 Hz monitor, it ensures you don't get any screen tear. If you turn VSync off on your NVIDIA settings, you will get screen tear, and you will notice it while you're playing this game. You know, like when you're turning, you get screen tear. If you see, I get no screen tear, and that's all about, you know, graphics quality. That's why VSync's on for my monitor. Okay, so graphics, like I said, are basically either on high, everything's on, or on very high or ultra. The settings that aren't on ultra, that are like on very high, either there isn't an ultra setting, like, you know, texture that is ultra, or for example like water quality. The reason why I went with high instead of very high is I was reading a guide that NVIDIA had put out for the game, that they went through all of these video settings and showed you, you know, they did a good write-up and showed you the FPS increase, performance increase and decrease for each setting, what they experienced, and they showed you they showed what hardware they were using, and it is actually really helpful. Essentially, a lot of these settings, like for example this reflection, so with it off, I'm at 3055. If I was to maximize it, I get, like, you know, that's only like a 30 megabyte video hit, which is nothing. But the reason why I have it off is because the guide, they concluded that with this setting with it on, it virtually had no graphics improvement, so it was pointless to have it on. You know, things like that. You know, you have to test that before you can really come to that conclusion. Like with this particular setting, you have to go through and test each particular setting, and then do like a graphics test and see if there's an improvement. And these guys did that work. You know, they did a lot of that work for you already, for me too. So rather than thinking by default, oh, I can handle that change, I should do that. Well, it didn't actually do anything at all because of this guide. They talk about it. And that's just one setting. Again, many of these other settings, where the very high setting compared to ultra was practically just as good, or you couldn't notice the difference, and you were able to keep an extra frame FPS or two because you had it on the step down. So to me, that was the most important thing, was, you know, finding the highest quality graphics I can find for my rig, for my hardware, and then the highest performance at the same time. Because this game is, you know, really beautiful. It really is a really well done game, and when you have all the graphics settings on high and you're getting smooth gameplay, it's really enjoyable to play because of that reason. So it's important, you know, to try and find the best setting for your rig. And also because, you know, I see a lot of posts on Reddit and stuff with people that have similar rigs to me, or even better hardware. Like I have a 970 and they're having issues, you know, and it's a settings issue, it really is. Unless you're overheating or something like that, which you would know if you have the utilities running like I showed in the beginning of the video. That's why they're running, so I can eliminate that issue. Then they should be getting the performance I'm getting, you know. And this is how you find out. This is how you get to the point where I'm at with hardware that maybe people don't think can run this game as well as it can. So the settings are really important. And like I said, everything's on very high or ultra. With the GTX 970, And my monitor, my 1080p 60 hertz monitor, I did not have luck with the frame scaling. I initially thought it might be pretty neat because you can scale up, you know, like right here, start scaling up to, 4K, but my video card wouldn't handle it. As soon as I enable this, I get stuttering, which is fine, no big deal. I get 1080p. I just wanted to point that out, that doesn't work for me. And the reason why I'm able to run this game so well, I'm on wireless. I have a GTX 970 with an i7 2600 processor. That's about, I have 12 gigabytes of RAM. My system is about 4 years old, maybe even 5 years old now. I have a Sandy Bridge MSI motherboard. There's rigs out there that have greater hardware than I do. Like, hardware has been improving every year since I put my computer together, and I run this game at practically 60 solid FPS, 1080p practically on ultra, online with no stuttering whatsoever. And I'm gonna go ahead and quit. And the last thing I'm gonna show you to end this video with is the guide that I think really kind of like helped me solidify my configuration, because they do all of the testing, that you would have to spend time doing. And they did it with your hardware. If you have an NVIDIA video card, this is what you should be looking at, because this is the hardware that they're using. It pertains to your card, like shadows, the NVIDIA PCSS shadowing. That's an NVIDIA specific configuration. And, if I didn't read this stuff, I would have no idea, what would be the best graphically and performance-wise setting. And so this is the guide. It's on their website, Grand Theft Auto Graphics Performance Guide. They go through practically every graphics setting in the game, and they break it down. And they show you what setting they're working on. They talk about what it does, and then they give you like a screenshot of each setting versus another setting, and then like a FPS hit on each setting, and then their overall conclusion. Like this one, for example, the NVIDIA PCSS. This is specific to NVIDIA cards. It's handles the shadows. Now this gives you the lowest frame per second, but it gives you the highest quality. So I have this setting on mine, and it works just fine. And shadowing is extremely important for graphic quality. So things like this you really need to know, because you could essentially run any one of these settings, and you're going to get this good frames with all of them. But which one gives you the best visually appealing setting? Well, it's this one, and this tells you why. And they go through, all of these settings. It's actually really, really cool guide. Probably took a long time to make, to go through all of these and come to a conclusion and things like that. So I recommend that anyone go through this guide and really go through it, and understand what these settings do, if you really care about having the best quality and the best performance playing Grand Theft Auto on the computer online. Alright, that's going to do it for me. Thanks guys for watching, and you guys have a good day.